Alright, 210. Hey guys, it's Natasha with Nothing New to TED Podcast. Thank you to Vapa Media for housing and producing, and to La Prensa wow, and to Latina Podcast Network for having me on your network. Guys, if you're watching, go listen. If you're listening, go watch. No matter what, go to YouTube. All that. You're gonna want to see who I have anyway. So please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Marco Gamboa. I am an author. Wrote a book recently, and I'm super happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks
Yeah.
for coming.
No, thank you.
I appreciate it. And you brought.
I brought goodies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Okay, so tell me about the book. Tell me about you.
Yeah, sure. So the book and I go hand in hand, but they're also two totally different things. So I, in real life, about 2010, 2011, I started to feel really sick. And so I went to doctors, and everyone was saying, like, hey, it's anxiety, it's anxiety. Gave me medicine, didn't really do anything. I still kept feeling sick. And so I slowly kind of just started to withdraw, and I eventually just became agoraphobic. I didn't leave my house, and I started to just write. And so writing originally was just kind of a coping mechanism. And so I did that. I started with just writing a ton of short stories. And so that kind of took off. And finally, like in 2018, 2019, I had this episode where for about a week, my body kept thinking it was falling.
Mm-hmm.
So I was rushed in. I had a doctor who was super on it, said, hey, I actually want to run some other tests. Cool. Fast forward 2020, they finally said, hey, you have multiple sclerosis. Like, that's what's been wrong this whole time. That's why nothing else has helped.
Yeah.
And so luckily they were able to put me on some amazing medicines and, get kind of right with everything and be able to go out and do stuff and live a normal life. But at the same time, I had, these 10 plus years worth of writing that originally I thought I'm just going to gift this stuff to my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually kind of workshopped it with a couple publishers. And one publisher said, hey, I think you want to do the short story. We'll totally do it. But I actually think you have a novel. And so we went ahead and moved forward and put it together and went through a few rounds of changes and eventually came out with what the book is today. And so in the book, it follows a fictional Marco who kind of struggles with saying goodbye to the life that he has. He struggles with the fact that he has to say goodbye to the way life is, knowing that it's probably going to get worse, right? So it's a lot of the unknown, and it's dealing with him, his solitude, the relationships he's developed with his children, the relationships he's developed with, because he's not leaving essentially the neighbors that are in his immediate proximity, and some of the love relationships that he has with spouses or girlfriends, and at the same time with his family. And so so that came out very late last year, and that's me, and that's the book.
Yeah, and so you were actually on Amazon's bestseller, right?
I was, when it first came out, I was Amazon's top seller for a little while in the multiple sclerosis category.
Awesome.
And so we're still working through it. Right now you can find it, it's on Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble, all sorts of places. Hopefully within the year we'll have it for free through audiobooks. I'm really hoping that I can put it kind of on YouTube. And my big thing is I'm not trying to make a buck off of it.
Okay.
I'm trying to just give it to people in case it helps them. Maybe it doesn't help them, right? Maybe it makes them worse because they're like, oh shit, like this is scary, right?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people have reached out who are like going through diagnosis and things like that. And that big unknown can be terrifying, right? And so it's not that there's any answers in the book, because there's not.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's this idea of like, sometimes you just got to sit in a bad spot. And sometimes that's just what's your, that kind of what was prescribed to you, to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Let yourself feel it and go through
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And that's the really hard part is, I think you know, and I'm super addicted to social media, but I think right now when you scroll and stuff like that, there's always this idea of like someone's going to sell you a solution.
Mm.
And you know, that's not me. I'll waste time with you,
Yeah.
but I don't have a solution. And I think that that's the part that I had to struggle with, is because, I mean, I did everything. I did, you know, from essential, and I'm not knocking anything. I think if you find peace in absolutely anything, freaking chase it, right? But like, I tried everything when I didn't have an answer, and I still don't have an answer. And, you know, I know what I need to do. But it's just one of those things where you just, it's trying to not be sad right now. It's trying not to be afraid right now. It's trying to just have peace enough to make times like this, right? Like, you know, friendships like this, and have a good time.
Yeah. And I can't imagine that that's easy. I'm sure it's, you know, a constant internal battle. How has MS changed your life so far?
I think I constantly say goodbye to stuff. And I think it
That's
makes
intense.
things every sweeter. It makes things. When we were walking up the stairs, I thought, shit, what if I can't do this one day, right? Because there's days where I'm like with a cane, and there's days where I can't walk, where I'm just in bed all the time. And so it's one of those things where, like, I was terrified before I got here. I was so nervous.
Oh.
But it's one of those things where, like, now that I'm here, I'm like, shit, a few years from now, this will be a really nice memory.
Yeah.
To think that I came, I sat with someone that I super respect.
Thank you.
And got a chance to just kind of chew the shit for a little while and have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is scary, and, you know, some people have, you know, different coping mechanisms and whatnot. And for me, it's just trying to do everything I can right now before I can't, in case I can't.
And that's really tough, because you know that at some point, more than likely, there's going to be a point in time in your life that you, like you said, you can't.
Yeah.
And I think knowing that at one point you could is also that battle of like, let me enjoy right now, but also shit, you know, how much longer do I have this?
Yeah. The book was originally called The Long Goodbye. And then they stuck with, when the diagnosis came, the doctor made this phrase called within normal limits, which blew my mind, because I thought, this is normal? The fact that I feel like I'm falling, the fact that I'm dragging my leg, the fact that I slur randomly, the fact that sometimes I can't think straight, the fact that sometimes like my arm doesn't work. And it was just like, yeah, that's your within normal limits is like your thing.
That's your baseline now.
That's your baseline now, right? And so the way MS works is, what I have is RRMS, which is relapse remitting MS. So essentially, it's a downward slope, but you get better. And then there's all these progressions that essentially go to secondary progression, where it's just a slide down. And so, yeah, but that's where, you know, I was involved very heavily for a while with the MS group in San Antonio. And you do meet people who, I mean, beautiful people, but that are literally tied to their chair because they can't hold themselves up.
Yeah.
But it's such an inspirational thing, because they're still finding a way to find joy in something, right? And so, and I think we live in a really awesome time where, thanks to technology, it is so easy to participate in a lot.
Yeah.
You know, whereas before it was, you know, you had to do, or, you know, there was just so many obstacles to getting something done. You know, when I was agoraphobic, I still got stuff done. I still had a career. I still had, you know, I was able to get a few degrees. I was able to, you know, write the book. I was able to have really amazing relationships with friends. And so I feel like a lot of that is thanks to kind of what is available today. I can't imagine having had this disease, you know, even like 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah.
And you have kids.
I do.
So have you explained to them, because they're at the age where they'll understand. Have you explained to them?
Yeah, absolutely. I've not only explained to them. So I actually watched Selma Blair has a documentary, and we watched that together, and it dawned on my youngest. There's a part in the documentary where it kind of looks like they're giving her a massage because her spasms are so bad she can't stop moving, and my youngest turned to me and said, "Is that gonna be you?" And I just started crying, and I was like, "I hope not,
Yeah.
but I don't know." And so I'm really honest with them, and I love them so much because I have two kids that just, I don't know how. I'm not a religious person, but I feel like someone pulled strings for me to just get such empathetic children to know how to deal with me, to know how to work with me. And don't get me wrong, they're still kids. They still piss me off, but at the same time, I think they can tell when something's wrong, and this little nurse switch flips in them, and it's like, I have one that'll like wake me up and is like, "Hey, you look like you're uncomfortable, like move this way so you don't have pain tomorrow." And I'll wake up sometimes and there'll be like little cheese sticks and juice and things like that. And so they understand a lot and they're there a lot, but I also try very much to still let them have a childhood.
Right.
And so I tell them like, "Hey, things maybe look very different in the future, but it could be this, right? It also could not, right? There are such amazing medical treatments. They don't call, it's weird. They don't necessarily call it medication with MS. They call it DMTs, disease modifying therapies, because it's not treatable, right? Like maybe it will be one day, but I think that's the other thing too, right? Is I don't want to scare them so much to be like, "Oh, this is going to get worse," because maybe I live in that perfect era where the medicine I'm taking right now is just enough to keep me great with a little bit of hiccups here and there, or maybe something else changes to where the disease itself for me and a ton of other people can be fixed or reversed, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
So how are some of the ways that you remain positive?
I think in a morbid way, it's saying goodbye.
Okay.
Right? Like I think in a morbid way, it's realizing that I may not be here again, and so I need to like make the absolute best of this.
Yeah.
And don't misunderstand me. I am also like heavily medicated, right? And so I think that the medicine, because I feel like it brought my system down, allows me to not, like if I was having this conversation with you 5-10 years ago, it'd be different, because right now I'd be shaking, I'd be, my leg would be kicking and things like that. And so I feel like for me, it's feeling glimpses of being okay that are what allow me to be positive.
Right.
And so, yeah. And then, but I think it's also who you keep around you.
For sure.
I think, one of the things that I told you I want to talk about is I think you're starting, but I feel like you didn't just start stand up. I think you freaking jumped fucking 30 feet out, right? Like,
thanks.
But like, I also feel like, so let me tell you my thing with that. The book is sad. The book is terribly, terribly sad.
Right.
I'm not a sad person. And I think that one of the things so when I started to do readings, I was just like, God, these people are bummed.
It's heavy.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
And so I just started to tell jokes.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, it kind of formed into this thing where I would show up to open mics and say like, "Hey guys, like, I wrote this book. You can go buy it here or whatever. You can get it for free over there." And it's terribly sad, and it's about this, but there's a chapter in there where the main character deals with a loss, and he deals with a loss with a very vulgar joke. And so I would transition with that when I would say, like, listen, this person did this, and so I'm now going to just tell you a bunch of rotten jokes.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it just transfers. And then what I noticed is, like, when I made these little friendships, life is hard.
Right.
But I feel like, back to my point earlier, like when you make these friendships where you have someone who can just cackle at the worst things, you just kind of say, like, hey, what else are you going to do?
Right.
I'm still going to be sad. I still get mad. I still, have my moments.
Yeah.
But if at all possible, I'm also going to just make the bad joke at the wrong time. And even if it's just me laughing.
Yeah.
We were just at Esquire. I made a joke. Nobody laughed. But I was like, shit, that was good.
Yeah.
That was good. I did it.
No, that was funny.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I wish I had a prescriptive way. And this, like, I feel like a lot of people are like, hey, you went through this and you wrote a book, so you're good. And it's like, no, I'm not good.
Mm-mm.
I'm not any different. It's just what I did find out is that there are a few things that I love, and I'm going to freaking let those things just absorb me as much as I can.
Yeah.
And I'll slip all the time. I'll have my moments, but shit, we're going to have a good time if I feel good.
Yeah, as you should.
Yeah.
On the good days, make them badass,
Yeah. And even on the bad days, sometimes it's like you feel awful. Sometimes I'm dragging my leg and it's just, I can't think straight. And I think, like, shit, you know what? Like, I'm going to go do something like totally I should not even be there, but I just want to feel like shit somewhere else. And you just go and I don't know. I saw this thing the other day. Have you ever heard of laugh therapy?
No, surprisingly.
So it's literally, you just, if you're having a hard time, this is so stupid, but you just start to laugh. And eventually, your body tricks itself into being like, oh, something's funny.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't have to worry about this. And so, I don't have a good answer for you.
No,
but it's just kind of one of those things where, like, sometimes you just need a dick joke, right? Like, it's just.
Yeah. They say, like, laughter is the best medicine, right?
I strongly believe
it really is. And, like, I joke about, like, I'm funny because I've been through a lot of traumatic events. That's the only reason why I'm funny. But sometimes it's true, like, you have to just spin it, and you have a choice. Either you can laugh about it, make the most out of it, learn from it, grow from it, or you can sit in it and just stew and be angry and sad and all of these things. And sure, you can do that, but I mean, what are you going to do in life if you're just sad and mad all the time?
Totally agree. The one thing too that I feel is I always had that victim mentality when it happened. And I was like, oh, this and all that. And then eventually I was like, dude, I don't have a bad life.
Right.
Like I can't. And that's when I was like, dude, how crazy would it be if you have all these limitations, but you still achieved X, Y, Z?
Yeah.
And then it would just turn into this, like, puzzle. And so, so it, it's just one of those things where, laughter is phenomenal. I think talking is phenomenal. The other thing too that I feel is that in order for us to achieve things, we often have to pretend to be somebody else, right? You can't
fake it till you make it.
Yeah. Which is cool. I love money.
Yeah.
I'll do it, But I also feel like even in those situations, if for a brief moment someone sees vulnerability and bites into it, do they themselves then feel comfortable to being like, oh my God, I had some, like, you mentioned you've had a lot of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
How many friendships do you think you've made after someone is like, oh, you went through something? Well, I went through this. And then you realize, like, things are usually not good for most of us.
Right.
And so if we can share that, and maybe, I'm not telling people that if you want to tell someone everything, like, sure. But sometimes it's just like, hey, man, I went through it too. And it's like, okay, well, cool. Let's go sit in it together, or ignore it together, whatever the case is. You share that, and it's awesome. One of the greatest things that has happened from the MS is that there have been so many people, and not necessarily with MS, but friends that are just like, oh my God, I have this, I have that, I have this, and they felt like they couldn't share that. And so one of the blessings, or whatever you want to call it, that's come out of it is I've developed these amazing friendships where it's a bunch of us that are just fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
And for a brief moment you can kind of take off the mask and say like, hey, I'm not perfect.
Yeah. I mean, nobody is. I think it's just a matter of being cognizant enough that, hey, I'm going to share with you, but we're not going to trauma bond. Because when you trauma bond is when you allow for like an imperfect relationship, right? And then you tend to rely on one another in ways that are not necessarily healthy, versus, hey, I can resonate with what you're saying and empathize. A lot of people trauma bond. So
I've never heard that before. I love that. I think I've experienced that in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I've ever experienced that with friendships.
It happens a lot with relationships, but it does happen in friendships as well.
That's interesting. No, in relationships, I feel like it's been one of those things where then you're kind of expected to fill each other's cup, and I can't.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Fair enough.
Like that is one thing that I've also learned. Like, if I want happiness, like, I have to go get it.
Absolutely.
I can't. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love hanging out with people. I love hanging out with friends.
Yeah.
But I can't show up in a shit mood and say like, hey, Natasha.
Yeah.
I don't feel good. I gotta dance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me a joke.
Yeah.
Like, it's not gonna work like that, right?
Right.
Because then all of a sudden it is. But yeah, more in relationships, I've seen that.
Yeah. I mean, the only one responsible for your own happiness is you. It's when you start to rely on other people for your happiness that shit goes wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that's, for me, it was really hard because I wanted someone to save me. And I think, I've been married a few times, and the first marriage, which she's a saint, my kid's mom, best friend, I realized in retrospect that I was like, I don't feel good. No one could give us solid answers. And I was like, fix me.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of being able to save someone, fix someone. Like, I love that. But in reality, I don't think that that's sustainable.
Right.
Because then you just keep coming back whenever you're not feeling well, and then it just turns into this bad thing. But yeah, I think originally I was like that, and then eventually in that solitude. So I'll tell you an awesome story. I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this. When I was really sick, of course, like, things weren't really well with first sex, and one of the things that made me so appreciative of friendships, her mom would call me to read me books.
Oh.
And at the time, like, there was, because nobody understood. They were like, oh, you're anxious? Vámonos. But I was like, how can I not walk, right? Like, how can I not get up and down the stairs?
Yeah.
Like, and they were like, oh, well, anxiety can really mess you up. Which I was like, okay, cool. And that is true. It can. But it wasn't my case.
Right.
But it was one of those things where that selfless act of just calling me to read to me was so enormous. And in a weird way, I loved it so much that I wanted to be better when she called for me so that she didn't have to fix me. And eventually it stopped being, let me read you a book, and it was more like, hey, how's this? How's that?
Yeah.
How's this? And it turned into more like a two-way. I still absolutely love her. Sweet lady.
And that's also because she had the energy and the capacity to do so. Because I think where people get confused is just because you have a spouse or a best friend or whatever, that you assume that they have the capacity to take on what it is that you're going through.
Yeah.
When that's not the reality.
Yeah.
So, like, my friends and I are very big on, hey, I'm going through this. Do you have the energy or the capacity to kind of help me through it or just sit with me. And sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. And sometimes it's reversed. You know, then they don't have it, but then I do. So I'm like, you know what? I'm doing better. How can I help you?
Do y'all ever have like a safe word where it's like, hey, we're not talking about that tonight. We are literally just gonna go freaking have a great time or eat some badass food. You put the onus on the music, on you know, because I've had that too, where it's like, hey, I can't be, you know, with a buddy of mine went through some stuff, and it's like, dude, let's go put it on the shitty ass Spurs,
Yeah.
and let's not talk about this. Let's go watch it. We know we're gonna get our butts kicked, but let's. Did y'all have like something like that? Or?
Yeah, no. I mean, I'll be really honest. A couple months ago, I was like going through it. It was a terrible month. Like all of May sucked ass. Like it was terrible. I was super depressed. And one day I just like woke up. My best friend was like, "Hey, like, you know, how's today?" And I'm like, "Today's really shitty." I don't know why. It just is. It automatically, I'd wake up and be like, "I don't really want to be awake." And so she's like, "Okay, well, you know, I'll help you. You know, whatever. We'll talk later." She lives like 30 minutes from me. So I'm getting ready, slowly getting ready. And I'm like, "Ugh, I guess, whatever. I'll start my day." And my doorbell rings. And she's like, "Come answer the door." So I go, and she has like a bottle of champagne and like some sushi. And she's like, "We're not going to be sad girls today." She's like, "Let's go." And so sat in my kitchen. She let me cry, had some champagne, ate some food. And like that was what I needed. And I didn't know that I needed it. You know, and then like going to a lunch with my group of girlfriends and just sitting there and having one of those moments of like, fuck, I really needed this. Like, I didn't know I needed it. So, yeah, we definitely have that. You know, and there was like another instance where I had an event and I can do the whole like, oh yeah, it's great. I'm so excited to be here. And everybody can see right through it because I'm a terrible liar. And so they're like, whenever you're ready, I'm here. And I remember walking into the parking lot and my best friend was like, all right, so where are we going? And I was like, I just want to go home and like cry. And she's like, no, the fuck we're not. So she was like, where are we going? She's like, we'll go drop your car off and we'll go somewhere. And yeah, we danced and we sang and we had a great time. And, but it's people like that, right, that have your back and help you get through things because I couldn't.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think when everything happened, I had very few people who would sit with me like that. And sometimes it is just that companionship, that reaching over of like, someone's here.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
and I think that is, you know, I know we both talked about having kids. Like, I know, you know, right now their relationships are what they are. I'm so happy that they have friends. I hope they develop into other stuff. But I hope the one thing I can teach them is like the true friend is going to be the one that's like, I'm going to show up at your door and bring sushi here and I forget what you said, wine or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, right? Where it's like, hey, you know, it's so hard to find that when you have that mask on.
For sure.
And I think once you're like, hey, once you, I don't want to say trauma bond, but once you have that vulnerability, God, it's such an awesome thing when you have those friends that are just like, just checking on you, you know?
It's amazing to have, but it's also a little terrifying, to be honest, right? Because then you allow yourself to be vulnerable with people and you just kind of pray to God that they don't do anything to hurt you. But then that's your own internal thoughts, right? Of like, okay, I'm going to allow myself to be vulnerable and trust this person and assume that they're not going to hurt me just because other people have hurt me. It's like a relationship, right? Just because my ex hurt me doesn't mean this person's going to hurt me. And it's a mindset, but I think it's a lot of us are jaded, or a lot of people are jaded. So they would just prefer to keep everyone at arm's length and have a wall up. And then those are the people that are struggling the hardest because they haven't allowed people to be close enough. So when they are going through things, they're like, well, I don't have anybody. Well, yeah, because you haven't allowed anybody.
I totally hear you. I think my toxic trait is that I will be like vulnerable with everyone. I'll befriend I love making random strangers laugh. I love befriending anybody, everybody. I think my thing though is that I feel like I don't have a high tolerance for like once something's gone wrong. I've done it with family. I've done it with really close friends where it's like if something's gone wrong, like it's a quote in the book. I'd rather love you and miss you than have you and hate you. And I think that's the problem I have is like I will, and I guarantee you in like a month, I'll just not because I need anything from you. I'll be like, hey dude, how you doing? You know, like. But it's one of those things like I don't have that tolerance because I kind of feel like my time's limited.
Sure.
I don't have that tolerance for like, okay, I'm going to continue to get hurt. And I think that I struggle with, and in relationships, this is absolutely true. I struggle with, oh my God, I'm missing my train of thought. But what is it called when, compromise. I'm not good with compromise.
Really?
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, hey man, like I will totally be there for you, but burn me once and it's really hard for me to come back.
I don't think that's a matter of compromising though. I think that's like, to me, compromising is like, I want Chinese, you want Mexican, we're going to go to Mexican Chinese fusion. You know what I mean? That's compromise. If someone hurts me, absolutely. Like, like you show me who you are once, I'm good. I can continue to work with you or keep it cute and be like, oh, hey, how are you? But I already know. Like, I can't trust you.
So I'm not assuming you're not. So I'm Mexican. In the Mexican culture, with family a lot, there's like this forgiveness that it's like, oh, they did this to you. And it's just like, okay, well, you know, maybe that's enough. And it's like, no. They were under duress because of what it was. And it's just like, and so I think that that's one of the things that I didn't want to do because I saw so many times my parents get burned.
Yeah.
That, you know, it was just, it was just different. And, you know, the part that I'm struggling right now is I don't know what my kids are going to pick up. I better said, I don't know what I wish my kids picked up from that. Do I want them to be tolerant but have boundaries?
Yes.
Or do I want them to be like completely, this isn't going to work out before even seeing what the trajectory is, right? Right.
So the first thing that you said, it's so important to have healthy boundaries and to set them for everybody. I am Latina, and that was very much the like, ay, mija, you only have one mom, you only have one tia, or whatever. Like, no, I don't have freaking 8 of them. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't believe in continuing to forgive somebody just because they're blood.
100%.
If you are toxic, you're toxic. And I don't need that in my life. I will very much cut people out of my life, and I have, including family, because I'm not dealing with it. Yeah. Just because we're family doesn't mean we have to be together. I would rather be surrounded by chosen family or by family that does love me and I love them and it's reciprocal than sit there and force myself to be uncomfortable at like an asada just because that's my, you know, my deal. Like, no. Yeah. I'm not going to do it. And I don't want my kids to do it either. And same thing, like, you know, with us, it was like the Mexican goodbye, the Mexican hello, right? You hug and say hello to every single person. My kids don't want to hug anybody. You don't have to.
That's so funny that you bring that up. There's this huge thing right now where my oldest, like, she's like, I don't want to kiss anybody. And I'm like, but chinga, don't? Yeah. But then you have, you know, the tios and everyone just like, a ver un beso. And she'll do the side hug. And it's like, you know, you know, and I'm not bashing the culture. No. It's just not what I choose.
Yeah. No, me either. It's also very uncomfortable for us to, like, have been forced to do that. I had, like, a creepy tio who would, like, rub my back extra hard every time I'd see him. And, like, to this day, I see him and I'm like, ugh. Like, I get, like, asco because I'm like...
Shit, yeah.
It's just an ugly feeling. So, absolutely not. My daughter, around him, absolutely not.
Not.
Yeah. And that's me protecting mine. And not to say my mom didn't protect me or whatever. That I'm not saying that that's the case either. And, like, I wasn't, like, molested by my uncle or anything. But still, no. It was just an uncomfortable thing. But feeling forced or was forced to, like, do it. Like, no, you have to hug and kiss, like, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And all spectrums of it. Like, to me, that's heavy. You know, that is, especially, I don't know what age that happened, but to me, at any age that you have that touch, that just isn't welcome.
Mm-hmm.
It's a yucky feeling, but you know, sometimes it's even just getting on the phone with someone, you know, and my kids will be like, I don't want to talk to them, and I'm like, well, shit, don't answer your phone, like, you
Yeah.
know, you're fine, like,
Yeah.
But it, I love that. I love that it's recognized of like, you know, and I know there's a term for it in psychology where you're essentially like saying, hey, that stopped with me, and I'll protect my kids from that.
Yeah, you're breaking the generational
There you go.
curse, trauma, whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, you know, and you know, unfortunately, the way life is, I think our kids will have their own thing that they, you know, struggle with. But my hope is that because we've gone through all this, that we find a better way
Mm-hmm.
to say, like, hey, you can be okay.
Yeah.
Tell me. You
Yeah.
know, we'll fix this.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so, yeah.
I think we're a lot bigger now, or proponents for communication.
Yes.
And that's what I want for my kids. Like, even if y'all fight with each other, I would hope that it's nothing to the point that you can't come back from it. But if it is, then it is. You know, I mean, God forbid, right? Something terrible happens. Like, you know, then do what you need to do. I'm not going to sit there and be like, no, y'all have to talk because I said so. No, if that person did you really dirty, whether it's your brother, sister, whatever.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
I've told, so I figure, I think my kids understand that. I hope my kids, maybe they don't. Where I've told my kids more is like, hey, if I ever become a pain in the ass, like, don't keep me around. Like, your life is not mine.
Yeah.
Like, whatever, if for some reason, you know, right now, I don't tell them shit. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, y'all want to do this? Cool. Like, let's do it, you know?
Yeah.
Because I want them to find out who they are before the world tells them who they should be. And so I feel like maybe, you know, and especially with the MS, because medicines can, you know, mess with me a lot. So I've told them, like, hey, guys, if it ever gets to a point where I'm not helping you be you,
Yeah.
like, if you got to cut me off, like, you got to cut me off.
Yeah.
I will miss the shit out of you.
Yeah.
But you got to be
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I'm really big on autonomous parenting. Not necessarily gentle, right? Because sometimes kids just need to be
Told what's up.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't hit my kids.
Mm-mm.
I don't curse at them.
I joke about it all the time.
Yeah. I don't talk down to them. Like, I'm not condescending. I'm not because I said so. I'm just not that. I grew up like that in that type of household, and it did nothing for me other than make me grow resentment for my mom and then my stepdad. And when he was around, it's a whole nother thing. But so I'm very big on, like, do you want to do this? Because I'm not going to force you to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are certain things, right? If it's a family, like, vacation, you're coming. I'm not leaving you at home. But outside of that, you know, I don't want to force my kids to do something or be something because I want them to be.
Yeah.
Like, my kids, they're not into sports. Cool. Then don't do sports.
Yeah.
Cool. But you're going to do something. You're going to find whatever it is that you are interested in and dive into that. But I'm also not going to force you to keep up with it. Like, put you in ballet and then you're going to do it because I paid for it. Like, no.
I do ask mine, being like, hey, give it a month.
Yeah. Yes.
2 months.
Yes. Give it
right?
time.
Y si no, pues, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But, like, I'm a huge band nerd.
Yeah.
I was praying these kids were musical. Now, my youngest, I taught her a couple scales on the piano, and she'll still mess with it. But her thing was art. My oldest, she loves to dance, and she loves art too. Did it hurt a little bit? Because I was like, I have guitars, I have drums, and I was like, hey, guys, you know, we're going to start a band.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, it was one of those things where I was like, man, like, you know, when you find those little hobbies and things like that. So that's something I've done. When you ask, like, how do I remain positive? I've allowed myself to be a kid. I always wanted this drum set. Pues chinga, buy you the drum set.
Yeah.
Okay, I always wanted to do this. Pues get the damn video game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do I have the time? Do I have, you know, should I be doing that instead of like cleaning or something? Like, no, but I have allowed myself to be a child,
Good.
you know, and I think that that's helped too. And with them, it's like, hey guys, like I want y'all to stay kids, but I do want you guys to have something that if something goes wrong emotionally, you can dive into that.
Right.
You know, like if you're, you know, when they like, I'm making this up. They're sad and they like to draw, and that helps them cope with a few minutes of like serenity. Chicago, you know, I want them to have that outlet.
Of course.
You know, but
Yeah.
but I don't tell them what the outlet should be.
Yeah.
I wish it was music, but it hasn't been.
My middle child is like that. I think he's at like 3 instruments right now.
That's awesome.
And yeah, he's turning into a little band nerd. He's in 2 different bands.
Oh,
And I'm
that's awesome.
like, get it, do it.
Yeah.
And like he's playing piano for a jazz band.
Oh
And
my
he's
gosh.
like, I don't know, it's hard. And I was like, do it. Stick with it. Like, you love piano. This is just challenging for you. Don't
Yeah.
drop it. Like, give it till like, mid-school year. And if you truly hate it, then cool, then drop it. But don't switch up your instrument just because. So he's like, okay. But yeah, I mean, my oldest is in art, so I'm just like, do whatever, like you said, like do whatever you want to do that makes you happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have this fear with the medicine and just the MS itself of like losing. And so I always remember this quote of find what you love and let it kill you.
Mm.
And I feel like that's been my shtick with the kids of like, guys, like, you don't have parents that fight. If anything, they hate that we get along so well, because they'll be like, oh, Dad, we don't need to go see that movie because Mom's going to take us. It's like, hey, Mom, are you going to take... I don't even know what movie that is. And it's like, estos cabronas just don't want to go.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think they hate the fact that we get along so well because we could be like, hey, did you tell them that they could do this? No, I didn't even know that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where like, I'm like, you guys have such a cool opportunity because there isn't a lot of negative stuff going on at home. So like dive into yourselves, dive into who you're going to be. And I think during my whole MS thing, that was one of those things that like, my mom wrote a lot as a kid or, as an adult. Her thing was letters.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote these amazingly beautiful letters to family. And I got a copy of some of those letters a while back ago. And I thought it was just so inspirational. Like, she was in the States by herself, writing letters to her mom. And it just, it stuck with me of that, the power of the pen, right? The power of like putting it on paper. And I think because it helped me cope during an awful period of time, I think that's why I'm trying so hard to give them some sort of something in their tool chest to say like, hey, I'm struggling, I have an outlet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So knowing, I'm gonna get a little deep.
Yeah. Like there's nothing you can ask me. I'm not gonna answer.
Knowing about like your diagnosis and the way things are gonna potentially escalate or de-escalate, I'm sure that you have thought about it, but what's the legacy you hope to leave behind?
For my kids, love. Like just that it was truly unconditional.
Yeah.
That they could have come home and said the most awful thing happened and that they'd be like, oh, Dad. That they never questioned my love.
Yeah.
I think that would be huge. From a friend perspective, I want to be the friend that shows up with sushi and wine. I want to be someone, not because that's how I want to be remembered, because I feel good knowing I texted so-and-so and said, hey, are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
You told me this was happening. Like, are you cool? I can't offer people money. I can't offer people, tangible things all the time. But God, if I freaking, love you, I am going to give you my time.
For sure. And that you can never get back. You can't get back time and energy.
Mm-mm. But yeah, but with my kids, I truly hope that their final thought is like, shit, he never needed anything from us. He just gave us attention, love, care. I hope that's what they. What about you?
Oh,
We can't go deep on one side.
I same thing for my kids, that they just felt loved.
Yeah.
And that they never needed anything, because they got everything that they needed and wanted. That I was present, and yeah, just that I loved them. For friends, I mean, same thing. Like I'm a ride or die. If I call you a friend, like we're friends. Like, are we burying a body? Just kidding. Are we going out to eat? Like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? And no, but just that I'm there. I'm there no matter what. If you're sick, I'll make you soup. You know, if you need to talk, I'm there. If you want to party, I'm there.
Yeah,
You know, good times and bad times. And then I think for people in the community, just to know that I truly did love my community, and I loved the people of San Antonio, and I love just meeting people and getting to know people, and that I'm a good person.
I love that. That's where I really struggle. Is I feel like because I was a recluse for so long, I mean, I've practically been in San Antonio my whole life. I don't know that I have those tentacles connected to the community the way that I wish I did. And that when I started with the MS group, I thought, okay, I'm going to do this, and I've gotten involved with some of their programs, but that is one thing where I wish there was something I can do for folks to really connect, not only to help them grow, but to selfishly feel like I belong. Which is weird because I've lived here since like 85.
Mm-hmm.
I spent like 6 months in Austin. I moved up there for a girl. It didn't work out. But that is where I wish I wish I did better.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, it's not too late.
No,
Yeah,
it's
you
not
still
too
can,
late.
yeah.
Yeah, that's just that.
Yeah.
I think that's the next step. That's what I'd love to tackle.
Yeah.
You know, do something with that.
I mean, I go to networking events and stuff all the time.
Pues
I can let you know. Yeah.
I mean, I bring my little ice chest
Yeah.
everywhere. So.
Yeah. I think it'd be good for people to know about your book and just you in general.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. And yeah, I love this. And I was so nervous, like I told you, but it's awesome. I feel like by the end of it, I've made a couple friends here, and it's been such a great time.
Yeah. No, we're chill people.
Yeah.
Well, I am. Guyland's all right. Whatever. No, I mean, I really do appreciate you coming.
This is a great time.
It's been great. Do you have any questions for me?
No,
I'll let you ask me. Okay,
this
good.
feels like an interview. I'm like, well, hello, what's the company's mission?
Yeah.
No. This was super fun. This was awesome. I hope.
Good.
Can't wait to reconnect again.
Definitely, yeah. How do people find you, or do you want people to find you?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay.
So I am. Oh my gosh, I'm awful at this. I will give you the tag for when this comes up, and
Yeah.
but I think it's WNL Marco or Marco WNL. If we can edit that out, now I'll send you what the tag.
I'll tag
I
you.
always forget
Yeah.
my username, but
It's
yeah,
okay.
you can do it there. And like I said, I have. If that points you, if you want to buy the book, you can connect with me there. I get free copies every month that I'm more than happy to give out. And yeah.
Awesome. Any websites or anything?
Not yet.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I have a Facebook page with the same name, but I typically I'm learning social media right now.
Yeah.
And so, but right now I'm the heaviest in Instagram.
As you should be.
Okay.
Facebook is dead. Yeah, TikTok for sure. Yeah.
Is dying.
No, TikTok would be great for you. X, Instagram.
Those are good ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like since I'm so trying to like capture the moment, I forget. And it's usually my kids that'll be like, record this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, take a picture.
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
and then I'll do it, you know. But
I feel like I do it to like a fault. Like it's almost like I annoy myself sometimes, and then I'm like, no. And it's like this quote from one of my favorite movies is like "Can't Hardly Wait," where she's like, "Memories are all we have." Is it really?
Yes, yes, yes.
It's one of my favorites.
That's a love-scented candle, bitch.
Oh shit! But she's like, "Memories are all we have,"
Yeah.
and like that's me. So I'm like, I'm like the historian of the group always. I'm like capturing everything, like photos, videos, whatever. Yeah, because it's life is short, man.
Yeah.
Like shit changes so quickly. Like I want to be able to one day look back and be like, I did all of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's documented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's so funny.
No, I love that movie. I quote that movie all the freaking time. I don't see no hoes, Kenny.
Yeah. They don't know 32 Ways to Con Big Papa.
Every time I tell my buddy I'm going on a date, he'll text me a little while later. He like, it fell through, some photo shoot in Fiji or something like that. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
That was,
I with beer. Nobody drank the beer. The
Okay.
beer has gone bad. Oh shit! I'm just gonna keep going on. All right.
Yeah.
No, it was great to have you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming again and having you on here.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so anything else you want to say?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything to the kid? Oh, they probably won't watch this, or will they?
No, I don't think
Okay.
so. I think I'll tell them about it.
Okay.
But my kids are just so much, like, I have my kids' tattoos.
Uh-huh.
And the other day someone was like, oh my God, that's so cool. You have those look like kids' drawings. So my kids are standing right there and I'm like, oh, it's their drawings. I got them tattooed.
Mm-hmm.
And the lady looked at them and she was like, y'all must be so proud. They couldn't give a shit.
They're all, yeah.
They were just like, yeah, he did it. Okay.
Good for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll tell them about it, but I don't know that they're going to look at it.
All right, cool. Well, thank you. And guys, thank you again for tuning in, for watching or listening to Valpop Media, again, for housing and producing, and to Latino Podcast Network for having me on your network. I appreciate it. And make sure that you like and subscribe and share and do all the things and support. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.